Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my Black Lives Matter education. We're continuing on with part 2. So in part 1, we discussed some topics with regards to racism in daily lives of Black people, getting pulled over for no reason by police officers, the discussions about the NASCAR and other businesses and what they're planning and are doing in response to the Black Lives Matter movement and trying to change course, as it were. But remember, this channel is an ex-Jehovah's Witness channel, so of course the topic of how Jehovah's Witnesses fit into this discussion also had to be had. And so I will now leave you here, and we will continue the conversation with Jay and Jeremy about racism amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. And after the conversation is done, I'll be back with some final remarks on parts 1 and 2. Just like with part 1, this is going to be entirely unedited and presented exactly as it was recorded. So I hope you enjoy and stick around afterwards.
You know, like some people just can't stand it anymore. They gotta voice their opinion. Just hope the cop's not having a bad day, you know.
So in the when it comes to, like, we've talked at length about the police and society in general, but do you mind if we kind of shift the topic onto Jehovah's Witnesses a little bit?
Okay, sounds good.
So doing a bit of research, like in preparation for this discussion, it's even been shared on Facebook, like some of Watchtower's greatest hits, if you want to call them that, about the colored people. And I love how they capitalize the letter C on colored people. There's no better servant, and you know, their lot in life is to serve. And now this is from the 1920s, and even from like 1914 era.
Yeah.
And even in studies in the scriptures, you had Charles Russell talking about how people of color would eventually be white in God's new order.
Yeah. When I read that, I'm like, wow. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yep. So did.
But even in relatively, like, by comparison, like 100 years ago, I saw it shared on Facebook as well. It was Watchtower from 1973. It was a question from readers asking, what's the Bible's view on interracial marriage? And Watchtower's stance back then, and I need to do a bit more digging, maybe you guys have, but Watchtower's stance was, well, look, the kingdom preaching work is the most important thing. And if an interracial marriage is going to take away from that, as it might in some areas, then you're better off not doing it. Which
that's kind of interesting, because there was a talk. There was an elder. I was visiting a hall. I believe I was about 16 or 17, around there, and there was already some interracial marriages or dating, happening around there. Well, this elder gets up on a stage, and his talk was exactly almost word to word what that Watchtower was talking about. And I was looking around, and half of the congregation, their eyes are just, you could see it on their face that they were very uncomfortable about what this brother was saying about how, basically, he's like, it's not really fair for the children if you have kids, why would you want to put them through that? And he actually got talked to after, because like people came up and like, we can't have talks like this. I was shocked that he even wrote down, saying, how it's not really right to have, mixed marriages, especially bringing kids into the equation. It's just disgusting in general. But
how long ago was this?
Let's see, probably about 30 years ago. I'd say about 15, 16 years ago. Something
wow.
like that. So it's just, man, it was.
Wow.
I was speechless when he was giving that talk. Is this really happening? You know?
Oh man, as a Jehovah's Witness, I've learned more about like the racist aspects inside the organization after leaving, but when I was inside, I felt like it wasn't that racist, you know? Only one time when this one dude, like this guy at our all African American congregation, went to a suburban congregation to get a wife, and he brought back a white lady, and that was like the most like racist I've seen people, you know, because they were all like, "Really, you couldn't get none of these sisters here? You had to go get a white woman." That was the most like racist thing I've seen. But for the most part, as far as my congregation that was predominantly all black, and then when I went to the Joliet congregation that was half and half, I didn't see a lot of racism. But after becoming the ex-JW, I've learned that the organization profits the most off of poor people around the world. Like, if there's anybody who have, you know, not that much access to food, water, internet, stuff like that, that's where they're the most successful, because they use that need and that hopelessness, and they fill that void with Jehovah and all those crazy promises that we know better than now, you know. And people with the internet and people with, like, you know, means to a bunch of resources, they don't have to need or want the stuff that the JWs are selling them, you know. And as far as that, a lot of black and brown people are in poverty around the world. This is a fact. And because of that very reason, they're very interested in Africa, the entire continent of Africa. They've been doing really well in inner cities in America. Like, when I lived in a certain part of Chicago called the Gold Coast, and it's really luxurious there. I didn't run into one Jehovah's Witness, not one. I seen some at the train station once. That's it. Like, they were sitting outside the train station, but like preaching, walking up and down the neighborhood, not a one. But I went to go stay with my sister on the south side for one weekend, and they were at our door both days. Saturday morning and Sunday morning, they knocked on the door.
Wow.
So I'm just like, yo, they know where their money is at. And it's in black and brown communities, in inner cities, or any place where people don't have access to wealth. And they take full advantage of it. So, yeah, they know a lot of black and brown people in the world suffer from poverty, and they take full advantage of it. Boy, I'm telling you, they'll make them elders. That's how you got Sam Hurd on the governing body. Even though he's the only one, he had to be there for them to save face. And it's there.
Well, let's talk about Samuel Hurd for just a moment, because I got thinking about that too. Like, was it Rudy on the video you did with Lloyd? She said that, like, Samuel Hurd is often viewed as he's often called the token black guy.
Yep.
On the governing body.
That is a fact.
So I know, like, recently, what was it? They had 7, and then they appointed, I can't remember his name, but it was like they appointed an 8th, and of course it had to be a white guy, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to ask the two of you this. Let's say Samuel Hurd gets raptured to heaven tomorrow. Do you think that they would honestly, like, do you think that they would go and seek out another black man to take his place, to be, like, to save that, continue to save that face and present as if, like, yeah, look at us, we are multicultural, we have a black man, like,
yes, they would
do that? Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially what's going on right now. I think
the worst thing that could happen for Watchtower is if Sam just, like, overnight just perish, just die, hit by a car. So that's the worst thing that could happen, because they have to have somebody black on the governing body. And if he got sick or something like that, they'd hire another black person before he died, just to, like, kind of save face or whatever. But you better believe 100% he's there because of his skin color.
Yep. I never really hear much from him anyway. He's kind of just like in the background most of the time. So
it's a fact.
When I did my McKellen video, I had a hard time impersonating him. So
I'm telling you, like, 'cause even with Sam, like, I've seen plenty of other people who are like more well spoken and more like more swagger and more attractiveness. Like, he's there for his reasons, and he fulfills his reasons, man.
Yeah.
His purpose is to like keep up appearances.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know how long? Because I don't know if you watch Critical Thinkers, JT and Lady C.
Mm-hmm.
He said back when he was in Bethel, before they put Herd on, a lot of the Bethel like class were black. There was a lot of black people there, and the black people were always like, "Man, when are we gonna get a black governor body member?" You know, it was kind of a little murmuring going around constantly. Mm-hmm. And when they finally hired him, or hired, but he was finally appointed. They have business. It is a hire, but when he was finally appointed, all that murmuring stopped, you know, and especially like I believe that people were like kind of happy, like, yeah, look, we got somebody to represent us up there too, you know, and that shouldn't be that way in God's organization, right? But hey, it is what it is, man.
So the next thing you know, you'll have like say some of the Asian population at Bethel is going to start murmuring, and the next thing you know, well, this brother here from China or Japan has just been appointed to the right body.
Which I'm surprised they haven't started that yet. You know, I think, considering what's going on, you know, the organization, they know apostates are really starting to get heard now, and it's scaring them half to death. You know, like they're trying to do crowd control the best way they can. I know a lot of talks they've been doing recently. You know, they're trying to, you know, roboticize people to make sure don't talk to an apostate. You know, talk to Satan before you talk to an apostate. You know? Satan's cool right now. You know, it's just you gotta stay away from those apostates. You know.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're in dire situation right now, so they're doing everything they can to please the witnesses that are, you know, currently in right now. Especially with that one guy that just wrote that book, you know. Even though he still kind of believes a lot of it, for him to oust the governing body like that, pretty crazy.
He ain't gonna be there for too much longer, boy.
No. I'm waiting for his YouTube channel to come up.
Give it time.
Immediately. I'm trying to have an interview immediately. Like,
his book tour is coming.
Yeah.
Do either of you feel that it's fair to, like, the general public I'm talking about? Like, I'm not talking about like waking up witnesses and everything else. Do you feel it's fair when talking to the general public about Watchtower that, like, it would be valuable to point out these kinds of things that they've got in their literature, even from 80 to 100 years ago, or even like that one reference that I found in 1973? Like, is it fair to say that the Watchtower organization can be just as racist as anybody else?
I think it can be important. Like I said, I haven't, like, as far as like, you know, Mormonism stuff, I haven't really, you know, looked into much of their literature, how they, you know, talk about race and things like that. But I think especially with today, you know, when race is such a touchy subject anyway, and I think when people hear something like that, you know, they're more piqued about what's really going on. And I think to throw that on top of, especially, you know, all the child abuse cases happening and things like that, it's just kind of like a cherry on top with them to really get more focused about it, to be more aware of it, you know, talk about it more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like talking to people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses and who never were Jehovah's Witnesses about racism inside the Jehovah's Witness organization is not nothing that's gonna move the needle at all. You know, like you gotta give them something, because the point is, like, if we're trying to really like point out what's wrong with the organization and bring down the organization as a whole, we gotta hit them with something that everybody can instantly understand and instantly hate. You know what I mean? Like, if you say racism, people are like, yeah, you know, racism everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got them like about, you have to explain the blood transfusion policy. You have to explain the two witness policy, the disfellowshipping, the shunning, you know what I mean? And the pedophilia, you know, like, these are things that people can instantly hear and say, you know what, that's not right, you know? Now, apparently, you should be able to do that with racism.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, like, I can go out there right now and be like, you know, the place I used to work at was racist as ever. But as soon as you hear that, you're like, yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of racist places out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not gonna really like galvanize anybody to be like.
It's gonna be broken down into like steps of how did the racism start? You know, ooh,
right,
you know.
right. Like, who was it with? Like, because there's so many things you could be biased against.
Yeah.
Like, is it like a skin racist, or is it like a sexual racist, or
Yeah.
like what is it exactly? So, as far as like breaking down what's wrong with the Jehovah's Witness organization, you gotta get people something that they can like immediately emotionally connect to, and are willing to like take an extra second out of their day to make sure that doesn't happen again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if racism is going to be that thing, you know? So
even at a time, and like I'm this genuinely curious, like even at a time when like the Black Lives Matter movement is especially gaining traction like worldwide. Like up here in Edmonton, like there have been protests as well in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. The Indigenous people here have also spoken up on behalf of Black Lives Matter, because they even feel like, look, if Black Lives Matter, will matter too. Like, you know, the exactly what BLM is basically trying to say. Like, do you feel that at a time like this, that if you can point at an organization and say, look, they have a problem with racism as well. Like earlier we were talking about like Starbucks or NASCAR and everything else. And these organizations are having to do like some real about faces and everything to try and save themselves from like the public opinion. Do you think that like that expression, strike while the iron's hot, at a time when Black Lives Matter is on the lips of everybody around the world, it seems?
Well, to be honest, the JWs, they're not overtly racist enough for that to work.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like if like this the Amy Cooper lady, right? Mm-hmm. She was so overtly racist that people could see the video, instantly see how wrong it is, and then immediately take action. Like if we were like, you know, the Jehovah's Witness organization is racist, there's going to be some people that's like, well, I know Jehovah's Witnesses and they're nice and they're kind. I don't think, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, you have no video to show them. You could show them an article from 1920. You know what I mean? It's just, it's nothing there to latch on to in that fight. I don't think even right now while the iron is hot, first off, we still trying to get people to understand that Black Lives Matter. There's going to be certain people that's like, so what that they're racist? You know, like it's just, is not something that I think would have enough legs to move the needle right now, you know. But what does is if we would bring attention to, like I said earlier, the pedophilia and the two witness rule and the blood transfusions and people dying on operating room tables for no reason at all, that can instantly connect with people. We just got to get enough people to know about it and hear about it. Like if there was a story about a kid who chose to die and everybody heard about that, then I think the needle would move some, you know?
Yeah, I think as well, kind of like Jay mentioned, you know, typically when the general populace, you know, hear about Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, they give that cookie cutter response like, oh, you know, they're nice people, you know, they never really mess with anybody or anything like that. And I think that does kind of hurt the cause of people who really want to expose, you know, the witnesses, who they really are. They're just, witnesses are they're very good at deception, extremely good at deception, you know. Like I said, I guess it's part of that spiritual warfare training to, you know, you know, they're told what to do, what to say at all times. Even Ash had a message. I won't say who it was, but they're wanting to. The restaurants are opening up now, and you know, they just gave this very generic, robotic response as to why they don't want to go out in public. But it was because the organization advised we don't do that yet. So very robotic, you know. It's kind of creepy how they said it anyway. But like I said, just in general, like I said, you know, people when they see a Jehovah's Witnesses, they're just like, oh, they're nice, you know, they're harmless, you know, and you know, and I think it's definitely going to make it hard to really get it out there for people that don't have any ties to it at all. So
there's a lot of people that I've seen. I saw one comment on a Facebook post where a guy says like, why do I have to stand up for anything? Why can't I just be neutral? And now this person was not a Jehovah's Witness or an ex-Jehovah's Witness. This was just somebody like who was commenting on like a post by one of my local politicians. But he was saying like, you know, why do I have to do anything? Like, I'm just as free to stand on the sidelines and be neutral about it and do nothing. Now this is kind of like the way that Jehovah's Witnesses are when it comes to any political or social issues. Yeah. They're like, nope, don't express an opinion, don't get involved, don't take sides, just wait on Jehovah. The robotic response of, well, this is why we need Jehovah's kingdom response always seems to come out. Like, what do you two feel about that kind of like neutrality and just kicking back and doing absolutely nothing?
Well, I think once again, like I said, witnesses, well, we know how easily we're trained from a young age to do exactly, you know, what they say. I mean, any kind of critical thinking is like, you know, you got like maybe a little pea-sized critical thinking going on in your head, you know, and it's not going to grow at all until you finally start questioning. Once the question starts, you know, then you can kind of enlarge that pea. But for witnesses just to, I don't know, like I say, they're robots, you know. I mean, they're straight robots. It's just they just cannot question. Even I look back, you know, even when I know I couldn't like be opinionated about certain things, it's like I still thought about it, you know. I still thought about it, and like I often wonder how many really are thinking about, you know, what's happening. You know, they want to say something to somebody, but they're too scared to show it because, you know, people, oh, you're spiritually weak then. So, you know, you always got to be careful with that. But I don't know. I just feel that people that are witnesses, you know, they're so programmed. They're so terrified to break from that protocol. Almost kind of like how the Borg is, you know, they have to they have to have that initiative to please the, you know, the Queen Borg or whatever. So I was like, unless they can start using that critical thinking, I think a majority is just they're gonna stay on the sidelines. It's almost like I'd hate to say it, but I feel like some of them, you know, if they actually saw an apostate, you know, bleeding on the side of the road, I mean, are they really gonna stop and help them? I mean, it's kind of scary. You would think, you know, compassion would, you know, cause them to help that person, but I don't know. There's some witnesses out there. They probably would just pretend like they didn't see that person on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Oh, I know for a fact if they saw an apostate out there, they're like, oh, you should. Well, this is Jehovah hurting you. This is Jehovah. I ain't gonna interrupt Jehovah doing his thing.
Yep.
But with the witnesses and like this racial stuff, you gotta remember, like I was saying, like they're a business. You know, they are a business. That's why they don't want anybody to get in anything political. They don't want anybody getting into anything. Can you just imagine if the Jehovah's Witnesses were with either the Democratic or the Republican Party? If they were in the middle of that,
oh gosh, yeah.
it would rip the organization apart.
Yeah.
Look what it does to XJWs.
Yeah, pretty bad.
it'll rip them apart. It will rip them. This is why they don't want to be involved in nothing. Nothing. Focus on religion. That's it. We don't want any controversies to come back to us. Just imagine it. Just look at most companies. Any company out there, if it's something that's going on, you don't see a company just come out and just jump on any side's bandwagon. They only come out if they have to. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, companies just like, okay, we're not going to get involved with that. Imagine if Colin Kaepernick, took a knee and KFC was like, we support Colin Kaepernick. You know what I'm saying? just out of the blue.
Yeah.
People be like, okay, well, we don't support you then, KFC.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like who knows what they feel? Who knows what they support? It don't matter because their bottom line is making money, And same thing with the Jehovah Witnesses. Their bottom line is like getting as many people and making as much money as possible. They don't want to be involved in anything that's going to hinder that or break that up or lose members or do any of that stuff. They just like, nah, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to be involved in it. They operate like a company. And that's why.
Do you think that there's a time where like that like operating like a company and just like not getting involved, do you think that there's a time where the public outcry about certain issues, like this one even, for example, every company that I have any sort of relationship with that has my email address has sent me some kind of an email. We stand with Black Lives Matter, like the usual lip service kind of thing. But the witnesses, like their lip service is like, well, here's what the Bible says about racism and so on. Do you think that there's going to be a time where the public is going to start really looking at like religious groups in general, seeing them as businesses? Because like you said, Jay, Watchtower is a business. That's how I see them first and foremost as well. I'm going to look at them and be like, look, you're either standing on the right side of history or you're not, and there is no middle. Do you think there's like public pressure that's going to wind up coming for an organization like Watchtower, or insert any other one here that tries to stay on the sidelines? Pick a side. Like, do you think that'll happen?
Well, Watchtower has become extremely good at never being on the front of anybody's mind except XJWs.
Yeah.
They're extremely good at that. Nobody thinks or talks about the Jehovah Witnesses or have them anywhere on them, even other religious groups for the most part, They hide right in public, their entire thing is to be inconspicuous, except to the people that's in it or who were a part of it, So that's what they do. No, I don't think they'll ever get any pressure.
They're like Bigfoot, people know about Bigfoot, but they don't really think much about Bigfoot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as they're not out in the public, as long as they're not like at the forefront of anybody's attention, nobody's going to come after them. Nobody's going to be demanding, well, what do the Jehovah Witnesses got to say about this? Nobody ever said that.
No one ever, yeah.
Yeah, they're under the radar. They're not a part of anything that could possibly put them in a position to where they have to explain what their beliefs are,
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to think about too, like with the virus happening, the organization is starting to use Zoom. It's almost a blessing in a disguise for them to be able to use Zoom now. Kind of in the back of my mind, I'm almost thinking like they want this to be the normal for witnesses. What? We don't really need Kingdom Halls anymore. We can just, sell everything, go straight online. I mean, just think how much more money they could have coming in if they started this as a norm, Still, tell people, some BS. Oh, you still need to donate because it costs money to, do this internet work, So be sure to keep that money coming in, Yeah, you don't have to put that money toward, expenses, things like that. But, we still need that money. So I just got this feeling that they're going to use this as an opportunity. Well, anyway, like say, it's going to make them appear more invisible anyway, especially if, who knows, if the, door-to-door preaching work just comes to a complete halt for the rest, and like they'll just try to do everything online, send emails to people about witnessing, and I mean, who knows? I mean, because like I say, if they're looking at it at a business aspect, this would be a very smart idea to use Zoom and, you know, carry it on through that, just through the internet.
Yeah, they can sell all them Kingdom Halls, man. They sell all them Kingdom Halls, pocket all that money, and just straight up be like Zoom.
Yep.
Everybody do Zoom, yeah.
You'll know that they're especially desperate for money when you start seeing banner ads on JDUB.
Please click the link.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to JDUB Broadcasting.
Yeah.
You see a little pop up. So and so just donated $500.
Oh, yes. I can see it now.
We appreciate Brother Smith with his kind super chat generation donation.
Get that donation train going, you know.
Oh, I'm trying to picture a Jehovah's Witness Twitch channel of what those would be.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be funny. Oh man. So, oh yeah, I know your time is precious. I don't want to take up your whole evening, but in the XJW community, and okay, let's put the XJW community aside. In general, like, no matter what your background is, what is the best way that you would suggest for people like that want to learn, want to support the Black Lives Matter movement? What would be your advice to them? And when I say them, I mean even me as well. So
I think, like, for me, I think people just need to sit down and listen to people's stories. There's a plethora of, you know, Black people telling their story about injustices. I mean, there's no shortage of that. People just need to have an open mind and just sit down and listen. And I'm starting to see a lot of people on my Facebook, you know, they're listening. Like when I put that one post about me, you know, getting pulled over, you know, people were privately messaging me. Is like, you know, I had no idea, you know, you had to go through that. You know, they're saying I'm sorry. I'm like, well, it's not your fault, but you know, people just need to understand what some are going through. Well, a lot are going through. You know, the racism is alive and strong. I think it's stronger now than it's ever been. I mean, people aren't shy to show how racist they are, and that's a scary thing. I mean, I don't know if it's just because of Trump bringing this, like, we're taking our nation back kind of thing. I don't know if people feel like we need to get back to the slave days or something. I don't know. It's scary what's going on, but like I said, people just need to sit down and listen to stories. I mean, I love that, you know, all these channels are doing all these, you know, documentaries, and there are some people like, you know, I'd refuse to watch that, but you never know. They might be sitting, he's like, you know, I'm just gonna check it out just for the heck of it, just to see what they're talking about. And you know, if once they get that little glimpse, hopefully if they got some bit of humanity in them, you know, they'll really sit down and look. It's like, man, you know, maybe I need to rethink things. So like I said, that's for me, it's just people just need to sit down, listen to the stories. People aren't making this stuff up. This is real stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm. How about you,
yeah,
Jay?
and I agree with him. People definitely need to listen, and also just like everybody in their own life need to make sure that everything around them is moving in the correct direction. Like if you have a kid or whatnot, don't teach your kid racist jokes, and you know, get your kid to appreciate other people and other races. You know what I mean? Like that would help everybody in the world, you know. And also to really educate yourself on like certain Black situations in America, because I've always thought that the more somebody learns about something, the more equipped they are to help. You know what I mean? Because I can't really tell somebody what to do, because what if I tell somebody, you know, like help people out financially, but you ain't good with money yourself, or you don't have access to money yourself. You know what I mean? What usually helps is people researching and seeing what the problems are, and knowing how they are and knowing what they're able to bring to the table, use that to help the situation. Like I know a lot of people don't know about the the prison system and how it's set up to pretty much for Black people to fail. If you educate yourself on how prison systems are ran, then you'll know how to vote when you go vote. You know what I mean? You'll know who to vote for, who's being supported by these big corporations and these big private prisons and stuff like that. You'll know how to help us in that area, you know? It's just basically educating yourself on the plight of Black and brown people in America. And once you know exactly where we're being attacked and how we're being attacked, then people will know how they can help individually, because it's not just one mass thing that I can really put out other than, like, you know, raise your kids right and make sure you ain't doing crappy stuff yourself. But other than that, I just need people to learn about the 13th Amendment, to learn about why the entire prison system was built, to learn about wealth inequality in the Black neighborhoods, and not just assuming, oh, Blacks ain't got money because they lazy, or, you know, they ain't got a father at home, or any other ignorant stereotypes that goes around. Like, people really need to educate themselves and find out why these things are happening. And that happens by, like Jeremy said, listening to people and talking about the experiences that they go through, and just learning about the history of America and the way the laws are set up. So it takes some self-education, and it takes some a real like sacrifice to be able to put time into learning exactly what to help, and using your resources and your personal talents and abilities to be an ally to Black and brown people in this country.
Mm-hmm. No, I realize too, like, I'm a Canadian talking to two guys from the US. So, like, how about people like in other countries? I mean, of course we don't vote in your election,
Mm-hmm.
but like, even for like the local community here, I guess the same things would apply. Like, understand what they go through, and vote for people that are politicians and leaders that want to undo systemic racism.
Well, you remember how you said earlier that a friend of yours said, you know, Black people are like this because they don't have no fathers?
Yeah.
Yes, same situation, right? If you're able to rebut that person with facts, you say, do you know, like, you know, 90% of households were in poverty, and a lot of people had to do illegal things to put food on their children's table. You know what I mean? Like, in a system where there's enough money to go around, but for some reason Black and brown people don't have access to it, and that's how they end up in jail. You know, just basically being able, like, after you do the research, you can hit people with facts, and even if they don't get it, other people around who hear it may get it. Somebody else may catch that seed and say, wow, I didn't know that, or wow, I didn't think about it that way. And the only way you can get that knowledge is if you do the research and see exactly what the problems are. And then you're able to immediately shut down somebody who's obviously miseducated and misled as far as their knowledge. And you can explain to them, well, no, you're wrong, and this is why you're wrong, and this is something we can do to help if we want to help. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big help to us. Mm-hmm. You know, because just opening up somebody's mind to see another scenario, or just having somebody within earshot able to hear it and say, wow, I didn't think about that, or I didn't know that, that possibly brings yet another ally into the fight for Black and brown people in this country and around the world, you know? So that's basically what that is. It's like anybody can do that, no matter what nation you're from or where you live. Anybody can research and find out how Black people were treated and how they're being treated, and ways to stop it. And even if you don't know ways to stop it, just learn the history of what's going on, and then you just have that armor and that ammunition with you to help others that may need to be, you know, corrected.
Mm-hmm. Like, so yeah, I believe we're in a, you know, I think this is another huge civil movement that's happening, and I really think it's, you know, in time, it's going to be even, you know, what Martin Luther King did was great, but I think it's going to be greater than that, you know, especially seeing how much of the world is so involved with this right now. To see people protesting in like Sweden and, you know, Australia. I mean, I've never thought I would ever would see that ever, you know, not in my lifetime. And, you know, it's really getting heard now. And I'm hoping, you know, good things, you know, are really about to, you know, shed light. So, you know, people of all, you know, all colors, races, you know, can truly, you know, get together. I mean, everybody, someone's going to have their spiffs, you know, but I feel like the more that older generation dies out, it's going to make it easier for the new generations coming in, if they don't want to change their mindset.
I know Michael Moore in one of his films, I think it was the one called Where Do We Invade Next? He was talking about how, like, in some countries in Europe, like France and I think Sweden as well, he mentioned, like, the government fears the people. The government is afraid to piss the people off because the government there has been taught lessons by the people. It's like, no, we have the power and we will shut this fucking country down if we disagree with what you're doing. No, I don't feel like that in the United States, like the government has that attitude. I think that, you know, they're like, what, we're entitled. What seems to be the
government's they're bullies here. They're definitely bullies here. I mean, they got a lot of guns, but, you know, America's got a lot of guns too. So.
Yep.
Kind of a recipe for disaster, but I don't know. I think, well, just, you know, I'm not going to say, you know, if I support, you know, the riots and stuff that were happening and things like that. But I actually told my wife the other day, because she's trying to, you know, get a better understanding. And I asked her, I said, have you ever been in trouble, you know, with your parents and they sent you to your room, something really bad happened, you're really pissed off. I said, have you ever broke anything? She's like, well, yeah. I was like, just think about that. I said, people are really pissed right now. So.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
For people like Jay, you talked about the idea, like, you know, rebut a bunch of this terrible information that people are being indoctrinated with about Black people. It's kind of like when I was talking with this person, trying to rebut a number of the things that they were saying, like even bringing up stories like, you know, did you see Jay's story? Like, what about this other story of, you know, and Jeremy, without naming you, I was like, you know, one of your fellow ex-JWs was stopped on the day he got his license. And I told him your story. And I said, like, you know, how does that even help? And he just kind of like, the more I tried to rebut what he had to say, just like a Jehovah's Witness, you know, oh, apostate lies, like this person like, dug their heels in even more and doubled down and tripled down on what they were saying, because it was obvious, like, what YouTube channels they were watching, kind of thing. How would you recommend people deal with that? Because, like, I've seen on Facebook all kinds of people that are rage posting and saying, fucking unfriend me, kind of thing, and I've unfriended this person and that person. Like, people like really like rage off, you know, giving people a middle finger left, right, and center and moving on. But to me, that seems almost like really reactionary as well. Like, suggestions, thoughts?
Well, I always say whenever it comes to like conversations, especially on the internet, there are some people who just point blank don't know how to have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? They just don't know how to do it. If you present somebody with a question, you can't take that question and be like, oh, you're just trying to say this. So no, you have to answer the question, you know, and you have to be okay with a open, like, dialogue. You know, you have to be open to receive information, and you have to be open to give information, and you have to be at the position of, I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you need to stay in a constant position of, I could be wrong. Because as long as you're open to being wrong, you're opening your ears to hear. Some people, a lot of people don't know how to do that, you know? No. So I can have a conversation with somebody and I could disagree with them. And at the end of the day, we could both disagree with each other. But if we're able to talk and we're able to exchange knowledge, even if it's like their side is crazy, or I think my side is crazy, or they think my side is crazy, it doesn't matter as long as you're both exchanging knowledge and both growing, you know what I mean, from a conversation. But as far as people who are just like, oh, just unfriend me, you can try to continue to just try to, like, you know, calm down. Like, you know, I'm not trying to disrespect you. I genuinely want to know the answer to the question I'm asking. And it's not it's not about disrespect. It's about gaining knowledge. You know what I mean? And as long as you can do that, then it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be anything that somebody can't handle. If somebody can't handle it, that means they're not good at conversations, and it means that they're not, you know, it's going to be problematic. But anyway, gentlemen,
would that even include
I probably gotta cut up out of here. My little puppy gotta go for her walk.
All right.
I haven't walked her.
Oh yeah,
now,
definitely enjoyed it.
Look at it. Come here, look, you ready to go for a walk?
Let me out, bro.
That's not
I got some teeth. You're up here talking about conversations.
Yeah, no, mine's probably. I heard mine's barking earlier, so.
Yeah. So let me cut out of here, man. It was good talking to y'all, brothers.
Yeah, definitely good talking to you as well.
Much appreciated.
All right. Yeah, have a good night, okay?
You too.
You too.
All right. Peace.
Jeremy, I got another question for you. I was going to ask both of you, but Jay had to go. But like, I'm not going to name who it is. Mm-hmm. You and I both know. But like something that Jay was saying about where like being able to come at a situation like, you know, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Right?
Yes.
How would you feel like when a person comes at you with like, look, Black Lives Matter is a communist organization? Mm-hmm. Like this is some real like far right wing conspiracy stuff, and like this is what they come back to you with when you've got like, you know, actual statistics and facts, and they come back at you with a YouTube video that says BLM is communist. Like,
yeah,
can you even like have a conversation with someone?
Yeah,
like that?
yes. I mean,
too far gone. Like,
you know, I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You know, I think anybody has the ability to change, to think on the other side, but man, sometimes it takes a really long time or something drastic to happen for them to, you know, have that other notion. Okay, well, maybe I was wrong about this. I think it all depends on where they're at in life, you know, what's happened to them. Especially that one individual, something new, something fresh, you know, the mind just goes that one direction. You know, they got blinders on. That's all they can see. Usually I'll try to stay out of conversations like that anyway. Like they got to give me a little as well, you know. If I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and, you know, I'm truly listening to what they're saying, well, they got to kind of listen to what I'm saying as well, you know. It's only fair, you know. But yeah, with some people like that, it's it's a hard thing to deal with, especially like no matter what you say, they're gonna have a counter to, well, this and this and this, even though sometimes a lot of stuff that other person might be talking about, it's not really facts. It's a lot of hypothesis, you know. Yeah. So, but when you can, like, say, I love history anyway, so. You know, and when people throw something back to me, you know, I'm usually gonna pop up something history related where it's written in stone, so to speak. You know, it's like, well, this is what happened right here. You know, you can see this actually happened. So, you know, let's talk about that. But when they don't want to talk about that, you know, it's not worth wasting your breath over. Yeah. All I can say is maybe in time. They start realizing, well, okay, maybe I was an idiot. You know, I need to come back to this person and actually listen to him this time. So
can only hope.
Yeah, only hope. You know, like I said, you know, especially in my circumstance, you know, being in an interracial marriage and stuff. You know, even though I did have to deal with racism in the family, you know, people did change later. You know, so I always want to say. There's always that chance for people to really think about what they've done and realize, okay, maybe I made a mistake. And some people are very, very prideful. I mean, men especially can be very prideful about things. And,
no.
You know, they don't want to admit when they're wrong sometimes. So, But even if they don't outright say it, but they can show it kind of through their action, you know, that can mean a lot as well. So, but you know, I'll never just expect anybody to just come out and, you know, chew on their pride, you know. But at least that they're showing they're trying to make an improvement, a change, you know, I'm gonna give them that, you know, because I can't. It's pointless to. It's almost like, you know, fighting fire with fire. You know, it just doesn't work. You know, there's got to be a counter to that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be some water poured on it rather than producing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's also important for people to, and this is Stefan preaching a little bit, but I think it's important for people to recognize too that a person can change their mind. Like,
yeah,
I know that, like, you can't always accept everything at face value.
mm-hmm.
But it is possible for somebody to change their mind and actually really do a genuine about face on something. Like, and whether it be like racism, I mean, look, like just addressing XJWs for a moment. Is this my camera? Is this my camera? Addressing XJWs for a moment, like in the community. I mean, look, at one point in time, you were knocking on doors and you were holding up the Watchtower and Awake magazine and saying, Jehovah's Kingdom, come join us. Christmas is evil.
Yeah.
So on, right?
You're all going to die now.
Yeah. But now here you are, an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Mm-hmm. Like you've literally done a 180.
Yeah.
And especially for people that are now like, you know, like activists against Watchtower, like if that's not an obvious 180 and change of heart, then I don't know what is. Yeah. And I think what people need to especially remember is like, yes, someone can change their mind. Someone who previously maybe did not believe in Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. And then after, like, they educate themselves and they realize like what the movement is about. And it's not about, you know, only Black Lives Matter. And like they do come around. It's okay. It's not a hypocritical thing on a person's part to admit, like you said, we're wrong.
Yeah.
Because like even as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we all had to admit, we were wrong at one point about Watchtower and this so-called faithful and discreet slave. Like, so if anybody's out there and like, you know, if you have like these two friends that I've talked about, and I'm not going to name who they are. I don't even know if they'll even watch this video. But like, you know, if either of these people like, you know, changed their mind and one day came to me and said, you know what, Stefan, what you were saying was right. I'm going to accept that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to be like, but you said, like, you know, allow people to have the freedom and the opportunity to change their mind because.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to think too, you know, especially if you're like, you know, raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, if you're taught something for so long, that's the real truth for you. I mean, that's all you know. I mean, it takes a strong mind to break from that. It really does, especially when everybody, you know, centered around to believe like that, and you're away from other opinions and stuff. I mean, it's all you know. It's you think it's natural. I mean, it's almost the same way, kind of like how, you know, racism is. If you're growing up around people that taught you got to hate this person, I'm not going to give you reasons why you just got to hate this person. As a little kid, you might question a little, but you're not really going to think about it. And then, you know, the older and older you get, it just gets stronger and stronger. And you don't even know why you're just hating this person. It's just, well, daddy said hate this person, so I'm going to hate this person, you know. And it really takes a strong mind to break away from that.
Yeah. So allow people to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, people often want to point fingers and say, oh, well, you're just virtue signaling. You're just virtue signaling. That seems to be a catchphrase nowadays.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some people and organizations out there that, I genuinely think that they're just virtue signaling. Watchtower, I think, is one of them. Mm-hmm. The NFL, I think, is another.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't think for a moment that they actually really changed their mind. It's just that they didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, well, just because of what they did the first time, people being respectful, even though people were saying, well, Copernic, like, he's so disrespectful to the flag and stuff. He was just kneeling. No words, just nothing. Mm-hmm. Super peaceful. Everybody had a problem with it. It's like, well, I mean, when you protest, it's telling people something's not right, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't believe there's not a right way to protest. No matter what you do, somebody's gonna like, that's not how you protest. Well, how? Basically, it's like you gotta remain silent, you know, because somebody's gonna have a problem with it. But that's not how it works,
Mhm.
though.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, NFL realized, you know, for them to come back and say, well, you know, we really should have listened to what he said, you know. I mean, I guess that's kind of a form of apology, but I think they need to do way more than that to really show that they truly are upset about what would happen and what he was trying to set a message, that tone for, you know. But like I say, it's a business too, so, and you know, majority of their players are black, so that's their moneymaker, you know.
Well, the same thing is true in the CFL as well. Most of the players, a good number of the players in the CFL actually live down in the States and then come up here to play the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, might as well be called the what is it? The NNFL, the Northern.
Oh,
But I can't thank you. I can't thank you and Jay enough for
oh yeah, it was fun. I
taking the
really
time out for
appreciate you.
this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Anytime. Like I said, actually, because I think I've built the fire. Like I said, I think I'm going to start my channel back up. I've
Now,
been trying to
what
come along.
channel?
The JDUB life. So I know I kind of once I started like fixing my house up, trying to sell, I got so devoted trying to get this stuff done. You know, I fell out with my videos and everything. I just got crazy busy with that, and now everything's kind of back and settled again. You know, I got my room all set up and everything. I think I can kind of get back into it. I'm going to take a little different turn this time. It's still going to be comedy, but I'm kind of going to focus a lot more just kind of around religion in general, just to kind of mix it up. Just, you know, because I think the religion's in a lot of people's minds, and just to kind of show things, you know, just from a Bible aspect, you know, make it funny, but see things that just don't really, if you put it in a today's setting, it don't really, it looks pretty dumb, really, when you really think about it, like, you know. But, you know, I kind of want to just kind of, you know, I'm putting facts in there as well. You know, I'm not just like being stupid about it, but you know, I like to put facts in the stuff I do. Or even with my older videos, yeah, it was comedy, but that stuff really did happen. So, you know, so I'll be back. You know, bring some new content. You know, make it interesting. So
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I loved your stuff, and like I would even love to do a Thinking Caps on collaboration with you. I think that.
Oh yeah, that'd definitely be fun.
I think the community definitely needs a lot more comedy right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and unfortunately Jay's not here to plug his channel, but I'm pretty sure that everybody watching this probably knows who Jay the comedian is. But if you don't, there's a link in the description. I'll put a link to your channel as well.
All right,
and I'll put both of your channels on the end screen for this video. But yeah, like I really appreciate you guys taking the time out. This has been fantastic and educational too.
Yeah, definitely not a problem.
Yeah. So if you've made it this far, congratulations. I am so happy that you have made it to this part of the video. I just wanted to share a few thoughts after getting to rewatch these two videos as I've been like preparing this one, and just getting to rewatch the conversation and take some notes and really listen to what was being said. Jay and Jeremy both shared some amazing insights. And in the end, yeah, it's a huge topic. It has a lot of different facets, but for me, what Black Lives Matter boils down to is stop treating black people as if their lives are disposable or less than anyone else's, or worth less than anyone else's. That's what it boils down to. Nobody has ever said Black Lives Matter only, or Black Lives Matter more than ... That's never ever been the case. That's not what Black Lives Matter is all about. Yes, people should be treated equally. But right now, we need to draw attention to the fact that black people are not being treated equally and are being treated poorly. It's a fact. And the problem is systemic. It's not just about discrimination. It's actual laws that are in place that are targeted at oppressing and pushing Black lives down, and a system that has gotten away with it for so long. I admit that when I watched, say, the miniseries Roots, and with the Civil War being over and the Emancipation Proclamation, I thought the naive person in me thought, well, see, slavery, it ended there. Well, that brand of slavery ended. It just took on another legalized form. Much in the same way that businesses use tax loopholes to offshore a bunch of money to other countries and claim that their headquarters are there. Apple, looking at you. Yeah, the same thing has happened with a number of laws and ways of doing things that is targeted at, what's the expression in the Bible? Framing trouble by law, I think is how it goes. So yeah, and it needs to stop. Now, with regards to this discussion, just thinking about Watchtower and racism inside of Jehovah's Witnesses, there were some interesting thoughts were made, and I have some notes here. Jay mentioned especially that, like, when it comes to Watchtower, they know where the money is at, and it is especially in places where people are poor, are being beaten down, as it were, don't have a whole lot. That's where the soft sell of paradise and everything else winds up coming into play. And like any other business, Watchtower knows where its key demographic is to build support and get more money. Which, this might seem somewhat inflammatory, but when I think about who they're targeting and how they're targeting them, to me, it's just another form of slavery. But it's slavery to a printing corporation that is pretending to be a religious group. So, yeah. One thing that Jay mentioned, he says Jehovah's Witnesses aren't really overtly racist enough. Like, if you look at Jehovah's Witnesses, you're not looking at the KKK, obviously. But as some of the experiences shown in this video brought out, Jehovah's Witnesses are human beings and the product of their upbringing, just like anybody else is. So, yeah. One thing that really made me sad to kind of come to grips with is something that Jay said, where he said that if you try to point out racism amongst Jehovah's Witnesses, it doesn't really move the needle in changing the public opinion of them. As Jeremy said, like when people think of JWs, they always think of some people that are just harmless. And, oh yeah, I know a couple of JWs, they're super duper nice people. Well, granted, yes, there can be some Jehovah's Witnesses that are very, very nice people and, not awful human beings. I can't think of a better way to say it, but the problem is that when Jay said that racism doesn't really get people's motor going about a need to change, because when you think about racism as a topic, it doesn't seem to move people. It doesn't seem to cause any sort of concern for the most part, because people will say, like, well, yeah, like there's racism everywhere, so what? That's a sad reality, and one that I honestly feel needs to change. I mean, if we can all universally agree that an issue like child sexual abuse moves the needle and causes people to take action against Watchtower, recent action being the Australian government. This is being recorded on the 4th of July, 2020. Just a few days ago, the Australian government named and shamed Jehovah's Witnesses as an organization that refused to join the National Redress Scheme. That moved the needle. That got people talking. That got people fired up, and I'm glad for that. Racism, not just amongst Jehovah's Witnesses, but everywhere, needs to have the same level of universal getting fired upness, that's great English, isn't it? It needs to have the same level of care amongst people as protecting the children, because in the end it leads to another form of violence that is just as bad and just as scarring as child sexual abuse. So yeah. Some other thoughts. Let me see here. Some other thoughts from the conversation that really stick out to me. Jeremy said, people need to sit down and listen. People aren't making this stuff up. The stories that you hear time and time again on the news about somebody being stopped and pulled over and so on, the stories that Jay and Jeremy shared with me, yeah, they're not making them up. If you are a white person, no matter what country, whether you're in Canada or if you're in the United States or, you know, any other country in the world, if you are a white person, when was the last time that you were pulled over for nothing, pulled out of your car, frisked without cause, and even like thrown in handcuffs for no reason? And I'm not talking about, like, say, you know, rule under Stalin or something like that. I'm talking about in the modern world where you're supposed to be in a free country that is not a dictatorship and is supposed to be a democracy and, you know, free country, etc., etc. If you're a white person, when was the last time that happened? But if you're a black person, especially if you're a black person in the United States right now, would this be enough fingers to count since the last time it happened to you? Or would it even take this many? This is a problem. It needs to be addressed. And this is just me speaking from the heart. Like, it needs to be addressed. And the same thing is true here in Canada with Indigenous lives. They matter. And the Canadian government needs to step up and do more. But that's for another video. Some other thoughts here. Don't teach racism to your kids. Don't perpetuate it. We talk a lot about how we want to break the cycle of violence, like, say, when it comes to domestic abuse. Do the same when it comes to racism. Don't teach that. I saw a video not too long ago where a woman was literally dancing with the Confederate flag proudly and loudly and saying, "I'm going to teach my grandchildren to hate you." And she was talking to a black person. Literally saying, "I'm going to teach my grandchildren to hate you." And then using the Confederate flag as if it was some kind of sash of honor. That person needs to do way better. That's unacceptable. That cannot be allowed to continue. And no, that kind of thing is not just exercising free speech. No, that's being hateful. And the world doesn't need that. The world doesn't need those kinds of attitudes. They serve no purpose whatsoever. One other thing that I really appreciated that Jay said, he says, when you're rebutting racial stereotypes and comments, you know, if there are other people in earshot, maybe that'll plant a seed with them. You know, that happened with one friend of mine when I was telling her about the Australian Royal Commission and the problem with pedophiles inside of Jehovah's Witnesses. We were sitting at a bus stop talking, and sure enough, people around got to hear it and came over and be like, are you serious? Like, wow, that's really something. So I'm not saying that, of course, that we should have these conversations at the top of our lungs to make sure that everyone around hears, but you never know. If you are standing up and speaking against racially charged statements and beliefs and rebutting that with facts, you may not be reaching through to the person that you're talking to, but you never know, somebody else might be listening and think of things in a different way. So it's worth it to have the conversations. As one activist that I greatly admire said to me when I first got started with the channel, she said, whatever activism you do, make sure it comes from a place of love. This conversation about Black lives and racism that is systemic, when you're talking to ones that maybe say all lives matter, talk to them from a place of love. Even as Jay said, come at them from the standpoint of, well, look, I may be wrong, but to use that expression, you catch a lot more flies with honey or something like that. Yeah. So just something to think about it. And this problem isn't going to go away overnight. It's been around for a tale as old as time. But the effort to do better and to not perpetuate it is important. It's worth it. And the protest against racism is important too. Yes, as Jeremy said, no matter what you do, no matter what form of protesting you do, somebody's going to be telling you that you're doing it wrong. Well, you know what? People do that about hamburgers too. No, the cheese goes on the bottom. No, the cheese goes on the top. No, the lettuce goes between the burger and the condiments, etc., etc. So, but that doesn't mean that we all stop making burgers, right? It's the same thing with protesting. It's worth it. I won't say whether or not I believe that rioting is helpful, but I understand why it's happening. I get it. The analogy that Jeremy used about being a kid and going to your room and slamming the door hard or breaking something because you're angry. Yep, I did that too. So I understand why it's happening. We all can do better. That's something that I honestly and truly believe. And as I said in other videos, keep growing as a person, keep evolving, and yeah, things may get better if we are all making a concerted effort. Anyway, I'm going to step off my soapbox now. I thank you once again for watching. There are more videos to come in the future. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Wear a mask in public where you can't socially distance. And we'll be talking to you again soon. Bye for now.